Shouldn't have run a 20 to do the whole service.
Don't say anything rude. Bernie Cranky.
I tried to get up and scream. It's going on. It's recorded. Family problem. Do what your mate would do. He break dance at a wedding, so you can break dance in the funeral. Oh, I can't do that.
That's great being in front of anyway, they go, you've got another couple of minutes, you've got this exactly stuff to work with that child.
Yes. And and you want to share with yourself? Oh no. Just sit together. So inquiries. Hello, boy.
There you go. So he's done another one.
I was thinking the same, I don't know. Then it's strong enough to do it, you know. You said it. Sorry.
Roy. You good at that?
You say I can spell.
You know.
Or just to get out.
We don't see
That's what I said. We're going to make sure
More than the greatest love the world has known. This is the love that I give to you alone. More than the simple words I try to say, I only live to love you more each day. More than you'll ever know, my arms long to hold you, so my life will be in your keeping, waking, sleeping, laughing. laughing, weeping longer than always is a long, long time. But far beyond forever, you'll be mine. I know I never lived before, and my heart is very sure no one else could love you more than the greatest love the world has known. This is the love that I give to you alone. More than the simple words I try to say, I only live to love you more each day. More than you've ever known, my arms got to hold you so my life will be in your keeping, waking, sleeping, laughing, weeping. Longer than always is a long, long, long time. But far beyond forever, you'll be mine. I know I never lived before, and my heart is very sure no one else could love you.
What a beautiful song to begin today's farewell. Before we begin, could I remind you, if you haven't already done so, to switch off your phones or pop them onto silent. That would be much appreciated. Well, good morning everyone, and welcome, and thank you for being here as we gather in loving memory of Joan. I know that her family greatly appreciate the friendship and the support that surrounds them at this sad time. My name is Gina Breakey, and in February 2015 I was asked to officiate Les's funeral, and it is once again an honour to help the Whillance family navigate today's farewell. It is my hope that every part of this service will honour Joan in a meaningful way and truly reflect on the many things that made her the special lady she was. Well, it is with sadness that we are gathered together, but it is also with grateful hearts we are here to remember and celebrate the life of Heather Joan Whillance, or simply Joan as she was known by you all. Today memories will be shared, and you will all feel a sadness that Joan is no longer a physical presence in your lives. However, in spending this time together in this beautiful chapel comes the warmth of a life lived and a love and many friendships shared, and memories that will live on long after we say farewell. Today, we will give thanks for Joan's life, and we will honour her memory with this dedicated moment of warmth and much affection. So, firstly, I would like to begin by acknowledging the people who are most special in Joan's life. She was the devoted and loving wife of Les, who is no longer with us. She was a proud and loved mother and mother-in-law of Kerry and Glenn, of Wendy, Peter and Julie, and Dean and Deb. She was a very proud nana of Ashley, Hayley, Tom, Lucy, Sally, Jake and Mia, and great nana of Molly, Willow, Harper, Riker, Jed, Gus, Mackenzie and Riley. To Joan's extended family, including her sister Barb, who is with us today with her family, you were all an important part of Joan's life, and I'm sure if she could, she would thank you all for the love and the friendships you've shared. As each of you here take your time to remember Joan in your own special way, may you be warmly reminded of how much she has meant to so many. So summing up a person's life is a difficult thing to do, for no eulogy or story can ever be truly complete. No matter how well each of you here have known Joan, our words today will never truly do her justice. Each of you have shared different things with her, whether it be a good book, a dirty joke, a cuppa and a chat, or a simple cutting from her garden. Above all of these things, Joan will be best remembered for the love that she had for her family and friends. You all did really mean the world to her. Joan was the sort of person that never needed a lot of fuss made of her, and so today's service, including the music, the photos and the tributes that will be shared, will be a reflection on the happy times in her life and a way to piece together your own meaningful picture of Joan's life. Here is just a little of what her family remembered when I met with them last week. So born in Swan Hill to George and Margaret Fleming, Joan was the third child of 6. She had two older brothers, Ken and Gordon, who were both deceased. Then came Mac, who was deceased. And then 9 years later came two younger sisters, Barbara and Betty, who was deceased. Although Joan loved school, she left early as the family couldn't afford uniforms for all of the three sisters. Instead, she took on a position at the local newsagents. Her weekends were filled with teaching Sunday school and practising Highland dancing, which stemmed from her father's Scottish heritage. And apparently in later years, she was known for putting on a performance or 10, which invariably made the children cringe with embarrassment. When she was around 20, the family moved to Deer Park, where Joan found work at a shop on Flinders Street Station. 3 years went by when she met a handsome young man named Les. They were married 2 years later in Sunshine, and they began married life living in Box Hill. Well, after a few months of marriage, Joan and Les moved to Buchan to help with Les's ill father's mail run. Joan was reluctant to move away from her family, but being the good, supportive wife she was, she agreed. A short time later, Kerry was born, and they shifted to a small house in Buchan to continue growing their family. Wendy and Peter arrived next, followed by yet another move to Galantapee in time for Dean's arrival. Joan was always very supportive of Les. Taking care of her family was always her priority. Well, Joan was quick to adapt. She quickly forced to adapt to a country life. During the summer months, she would often pull out the gun to kill snakes, shooting with absolute precision. She got the job done even with 4 kids huddling behind her, hanging onto her skirt, nicknamed Annie Oakley, she was in later years. Well, times were tough, but despite the lack of electricity and running water, Joan still managed to cook tasty meals for the family. Rabbits would be often caught to eat, so underground mutton, as it was known, was always on the menu. During this time, Les was working at the local mill, so to help make ends meet, Joan would cook cakes and puddings for Les's co-workers too. This was no small feat, as the closest shop was a perilous drive down the winding mountain roads, so they all had to be made from whatever was on hand at the time. The same went for any injuries, all treated with betadine and a Band-Aid. Well, due to the mill closing down, the family moved to Bruthen, where Joan worked as a shop assistant at the general store. Once a week, she enjoyed a game of badminton and on occasional weekends, a match of tennis with the family. After working as a bookkeeper at her friend Heather Bromwell's family service station, then in the laundry at the geriatric centre here in Bairnsdale, Joan retired eventually in 1993 at the age of 60. Well, retired life really suited Joan. She spent her days making trips to Spotlight, gathering supplies for her latest sewing, china painting or other craft projects, or she was always found enjoying a coffee after a weekly water aerobics class. She also loved crosswords and a good book too, usually a recommendation traded from friends or family. Well, Joan made some lovely friendships throughout her involvements in various social groups. She was made president of one group, which was named Gold. She loved reminding people it stood for Growing Old, Living Dangerously. The group would frequently host guest speakers and discuss the latest issues as a way of supporting one another. Well, in later years, Joan found great enjoyment in writing poems and stories with another local group, the U3A. Her mind was always on what she was going to write for the next meeting. Aside from writing, Joan volunteered at local Jono's op shop. She would also enjoy watching Inspector George Gently, a British TV series with a very handsome lead male role. Joan was heard to say to her family that George could park his boots under my bed anytime. Well, Joan was very social. She looked forward to her Saturday and Wednesday morning get-togethers with her close friends. When she wasn't out and about, Joan could be found in her garden, a place that she really called her happy place. There was rarely a weed to be seen or a plant out of place. Her magnolia tree, however, was the bane of her life, always messy with falling leaves and petals, but when it was suggested that they maybe remove it, her reply was a resounding no. Well, I'm sure everyone here will remember how house-proud Joan was, and like her garden, there was never anything out of place. She also took great pride in her own appearance. She loved to shop, especially for clothes. Joan was a hoarder, but I was told that she was the neatest, tidiest hoarder you would ever meet. Her house is full of trinkets and special things that she has collected over the years. Well, Joan's children, her grandchildren and great-grandchildren were a source of constant joy for her. She loved spending time with them all. Even though they spanned far and wide, she still managed to keep up to date with what was going on in their lives. As well as keeping up with family, Joan was lucky to have forged some lifelong friendships, and she would speak fondly of Audrey, Ruth, Yvonne and Heather. Well, the family would like to express a special thanks to Judy Johnson, who was Joan's confidant and bin buddy, as well as Steve and Judy Hall, who took Joan under their wing when Les passed away. You supported her in an immeasurable way which didn't go unnoticed. Well, after a tough year, Joan spent the last 6 weeks living with Kerry and Glenn, recovering from an operation. According to Kerry, she was a good patient who rarely complained. As her health suddenly deteriorated, Joan still spoke of a trip home to visit her friends and her beloved garden. Although that never happened, comfort was found in daily visits from her family. Joan's final moments were spent in Sunshine Hospital, where she stayed for just 12 hours. She passed away peacefully, with little fuss, which is exactly the way that she would have wanted it. Well, Joan will be best remembered by you all as someone who was determined, resilient, hardworking and practical. And no matter what came her way, she just got on with things. Her many friendships are testament to what a social and well-liked lady she was, and her loving family a testament to what a loving, caring mother and nana she was. Most importantly, Joan always wanted what was best for her own children and their families, and it is with deep gratitude that they are all remembering her today with fondness and lots of love. So that's just a very quick snapshot of Joan's life. As I mentioned, it's going to be hard to capture everything today. That just gives you a sense of the sort of lady that Joan was. So we have a few tributes now, and I think it's fitting that we start with a direct family member, Dean. Joan's son is going to come forward and share with us a little about his mum. Thanks, Dean.
Well, hello everybody. There's been a lot of stuff already said that I've had in here, but first of all, I'd just like to thank the people who have helped Mum, especially in the last couple of years of her life. As there was quite a few of them, I don't really want to try and name them because I don't want to forget anybody. So thank you from my family and myself. What can I say about Mum that hasn't already been said? I, for one, don't know what to say really, but anyway. Because you just never think this day is going to come. I think Mum had done a great job as a mum, always caring, loving, and pretty easy going and quite funny at times. I can't remember everything. I do remember one thing though Mum said, is that she had a cure for Alzheimer's, but she couldn't remember where she put it. But Mum, when younger, liked to play tennis and badminton, as you just heard. She was no world beater, she liked to play them. And as an even younger girl, which for the record was a long time ago, Mum was a very good Scottish Highland dancer, dancing around cross swords and things like that. Which must have been quite difficult and dangerous, but she loved to dance. And I'm sure my brother and sisters will agree that she didn't pass her skills on to us. But that didn't stop her trying to teach us. By taking us along to the old Johnsonville old-time dances. And Saturday nights, I think, I can't remember really. I'm not sure what my brother and sisters were doing, but I was usually outside mucking around, doing something stupid. Or just looking through the window until one of the ladies would spot you and come and kidnap you against your will to do the foxtrot with her. An easy dance, they told me. Thank God there was no social media around in those days. Well, there you would be getting swung around the floor like a rag doll. And then you would see Mum and Dad swinging around the dance floor with the greatest of ease. And they looked very happy doing it. Yeah, well, that to me was a memory. I do recall a story that's been told, and this is about the shooting of snakes, and I believe that this snake made a very bad choice of coming into the house up at Glen there. And Mum shot it in the head, apparently 5 times with a single shot rifle. It's truth. It's right at that time I thought, I don't think I should give this woman a hard time. There is one other funny thing that I remember. Mum wanted to ride Dad's Honda motorbike. Out of breathing there. So here they were, about halfway up the driveway, with Mum on the front, Dad on the back. I don't recall if they had helmets on or not, but hey, what could possibly go wrong? Anyway, there they were, ready for takeoff, and take off they did. There was a bit of yelling and cursing going on, something about the brake and the throttle, which Mum knew nothing about. Well, at a great rate of knots, they left the backyard, across the road, without giving way, I might add, up the gutter and into the fence and the boxthorn bush. And I can still see it laughing. And I think that ended Mum's curiosity about motorbikes. And as time goes on, I'm sure I'll remember more things, and which there was some things brought up there before that made me remember a couple of things, and I'll reflect on them and think of her as she was. Until we meet again, Mum, rest in peace.
Beautiful tribute, Dean. Thank you for sharing those memories. It's not an easy thing to do, but you did a great job. And I'm sure your Mum would love that we're having a little bit of a laugh today too. So considering she had a good sense of humour. Now, as I mentioned, there were quite a few, obviously lots of friends here today, a couple of special friends that are here, and I'm going to ask Heather Fromm to come forward. She's got a little tribute she'd like to share about her friend Joan. Thanks, Heather.
Well, a lot of things have already been said, which have been wonderful, thank you. And I'd like to pay a tribute to my dear friend Joan. We shared life's journey together for over 50 years. We first met when our husbands and others formed the Bensdale Pistol Club. Of course, she was already good at that, apparently. That was in the mid-60s, and so many competitions and barbecues were enjoyed and shared. Then Joan became my office assistant at our service station to give me a bit of a break. Then our menfolk took up golf and we became golf widows. Thus, our craft afternoons became our thing, along with lunches and coffee mornings. We also became involved with the ladies' group Gold, which has already been mentioned, growing older, living dangerously. We got older, but we didn't do anything dangerous. And we attended many interesting gatherings. Exercise was very important, and we used to meet after work and go for long walks and lots of chatting. Then water aerobics was in the thing. Now, Joan couldn't swim at that time, so I used to help us support her in the water. But then she took swimming lessons and then was very confident in the water. When we changed businesses, she used to help me in the handbag shop on a Saturday morning, so that was another coffee morning. Somewhere in our memories we played squash for a while. We can't quite fit that in, but it's there somewhere. How on earth did we each have time to raise our families? A very special friendship, and I will miss her greatly.
So when we were talking about, Joan Scalmier and I were talking about today's service, and they mentioned Group Gold, and this is no disrespect to anyone that's in the group today, but I did ask what it stood for, and of course I was told growing old, living dangerously, and I said, well, what do they used to do? And Kerry said, oh, they play Scrabble and cup of tea. But yeah, it was a very special group that obviously Joan was involved in, and some lovely friendships out of that group, so thank you for that, Heather. Now I believe Judy Walker from U3A, she's got a few things she'd like to share with us. Thanks, Judy.
I feel it's a privilege to be here. Joan was such an important person to our group, the writing group, and we loved it when she came, and she loved to come. And she was so modest. There was a book put together not so long ago by one of our newer members, and she didn't want to put anything in, but she had 2 stories in there. Well, in a moment I'm going to read one, and I know Heather's name is mentioned, so it's going to be interesting. It's a reminiscence, and it's such a gently ironical sort of story. But I just want to tell you that Joan appeared to us to be such a lovely lady who just enjoyed life and shared the ordinary things with us. Sometimes we would get really highfalutin, imaginative stories, and she would ground us with something solidly real. And not that she couldn't imagine stuff very well too, but she was a delight, and so, yeah, modest as well as great fun. Now I'll just get on with reading this. It's not very long, don't worry. It's called Are You on the Mend? Oh, hello Mavis, how are you today? I heard you were unwell the other month. Are you on the mend now? How is Mary getting on in her new home with her new husband? Is his name Jonathan? It's always good to see them settled, isn't it? I guess they'll both keep working for a while yet to get all the mod cons for the house. Remember when we were first married, we couldn't wait to start a family, even though we didn't have everything that opens and shuts in our homes. So we still managed without, didn't we? Even when the babies came one after the other. Do you see Lorna much these days? You were great mates at school and always went to the dances together, even if we didn't always go home together. Didn't we have fun way back then? Everything is different these days. No Saturday dances as we used to have, and once a month in winter a ball to look forward to. Remember how the boys from out of town would get us up to dance, while our local boys were thinking about it and they would miss out. Remember the first night we wore those fine nylon stockings and all we could see were the seams up the back. We thought we were just it, didn't we, with our suspender belts too, to hold them up. What about the bloke who used to jitterbug with us and all we could do was laugh? He thought he was so good and would always dance up in the top corner near the band. Evelyn and I would buy a piece of material on Friday lunchtime, and with Mum's help we would make a dress each to wear on a Saturday night. Thank goodness for Mum's finishing off skills. They were finished without any safety pins attached. How is young Joe doing with his job at the post office? Does he like getting out in all weathers to deliver the mail? Maybe in years to come he may even get to be behind the counter. That would be a step in the right direction, don't you think? Mavis, did you hear about poor Dotty? You know, Dotty of the red hair and freckles. Frank ran off with his secretary. They've gone to live in Sydney, and he has some fancy job as manager of some big concern. Pity he didn't leave Dotty something to live on. Men can be such mongrels, can't they? What about the terrible winter we had this year? I've never been so cold in years, and there are some people who say it wasn't that bad. I don't know where they live. Probably up the coast someplace, I reckon, lying around in the sunshine. They say we were in for a really hot summer, but that remains to be seen. The Bureau never seems to get it right, and we do sometimes have 4 seasons in each day. I had a letter from Madge. You remember her. She's still with that crazy Danny she was madly in love with. Anyway, all her girls are married now and doing really good for themselves, so Danny couldn't have been that crazy after all. And they have a lovely home. She sent a snap and a letter as well as some of the family. Anyway, Mavis, good to run into you again and hear all your news. We must catch up and have a coffee next time you're in town. Bye now, dear. Safe trip home. This gently ironic story. By the way, she was an excellent listener, and she was so clever when she would reminisce or make up stories. Actually, the name Heather didn't come on that one, but I just loved the way she wrote. She grew tremendously as a writer, and yet she still thought she was modest, and she would bring us cuttings and things. And I'm going to miss her very much because I love Joan, as we most of us did, and I'm looking forward to seeing her one day.
Thank you, Julia. That was a lovely story, or a lovely letter to share, and obviously, certainly, it was reminiscent of Joan's love of writing and her way of expressing herself. So thank you for sharing that. Now I have a tribute here to share on behalf of Judy and Sandra, who are with us today. They would like to share some of their memories with us all this morning. Our wonderful friend Joan, no words can describe how we feel. Our memories go way back, a long way, starting from our early morning walks, whether it was frosty, windy or sunny. So many Wednesday morning coffees we shared with the beautiful treats that you made and the snowballs for Barry. Even when her legs were getting worse, she still wanted to join us for our morning coffees, and she would wander over, and at times we drove her home. You always made everyone's birthday a special time, and we would all meet over the street at various cafes to celebrate. You got so much pleasure reading to us the stories that you wrote for U3A. And let's not forget the funny jokes that you told us. What a fun day we had at your garage sale, and the day that we spent gardening with you. You even made doing the woodpile a pleasure. But we always knew not to ring you when George Gently was on the TV, or expect to see you before you had done your hair. These are only a few of our treasured memories of our very special friend. We will miss you more than you will ever know. Rest peacefully, Joan. Love, Judy and Sandra. Beautiful memories. Thanks, girls. And I thought it was fitting that I finish today's tributes with one that's been written by her sister, Barbara. I'm deeply saddened by the passing of my dearly loved sister, Joan. The past few months have been tough going for her, but in true form, as her mother before her, she soldiered on. Her death was a shock to all who loved her. I'm glad that I, along with her daughters and granddaughter, were able to spend time with her the night that she was transferred to the Sunshine Hospital. We like to think that she knew we were there. She sadly passed away late the following morning. I'm also extremely grateful that we were allowed to sit with her after she passed away. It was such a relief to see her at peace at last. My memories go way back to when we lived in Swan Hill. I came into the family after a break of 8 or so years. Sister Betty came along 18 months after me. Joan was always there for us, and she told me that she pushed me around in the pram to show me off to all of the neighbours. Betty and I both adored her, and as we grew up, she was not only our big sister, but our best friend too. We moved to Deer Park in 1953. by this time, Joan was working and we were still at school. Many a time she would come home from work with lollies and special gifts for us. One thing I do remember is Joan coming home on a few occasions and shouting out, "Who's been playing dress-ups with my clothes and jewellery?" We always denied it. She never stayed angry with us for too long. We were very upset when she got married and left home, and devastated when a few months later she moved to Buchan. We always looked forward to her visiting with Les and Kerry, then Wendy, then Peter and Dean. We loved them all very much. We also visited her and the family in Buchan, Galanterby, Bruthen and Bairnsdale. We have shared a lot of happy times together over the years. Christmases, birthdays, weddings and Mother's Day lunches, etc. Lots of happy memories. She will be sadly missed in these future events. 7 years ago, Les passed away, and a few months later, Betty also passed away. Two great losses, but Joan once again soldiered on. She and I spoke on the phone 2 or 3 times a week, and she always spent a few days with Sandy and I when she was in Melbourne. She was always interested in what was going on in our family. I can see by all of the people here today that Joan was much loved and respected by her family and her many friends as well. Farewell, and God bless you, my beautiful sister. Sisters by chance, friends by choice. Well, I think it's clear from all the tributes that have been shared today that Joan was certainly much loved by you all. A lovely way to continue remembering these special memories is to join the family at the RSL. When we finish here today, we are headed to the Bairnsdale Lawn Cemetery, where we will formally conclude this service for Joan. And then I know that her family warmly invite you to join them at the RSL for a cuppa. And it's a lovely way to continue sharing your memories in a less formal setting. So there's a warm invitation for you there. Now we have some photos, which is a really beautiful way to remember someone's life. And a couple of songs have been chosen, so please enjoy this trip down memory lane of Joan's life.
I wandered today to the hills, making to watch the scene below. The creek and the creaking old mill, making as we used to long ago. The green grove is gone from the hills, Maggie, where first the daisies sprung. The creaking old mill is still making since you and I were young. Oh, they say that I'm feeble with age, making my steps are much slower than then. My face is a well-written page, making and time all alone was the pen. They say we have outlived our time, making as dated as songs that we've sung. But to me, you're as fair as you were, Maggie, when you and I were young. be found. But to me, you're as fair as you were maybe when you and I were young. When you and I were young. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky. Misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, I hear her voice in the morning hour. She calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. Driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Yesterday, country road, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home. Country roads, take me home. Country roads.
Don't you love those photos from the 70s and 80s? We had such great hairstyles and fashion sense. Beautiful photos. Well, today's service has been a meaningful way to pay tribute to Joan, and the memories, the tributes and the photos shared today make up just a small part of the sort of person she was to you all. Each of you here will remember the good times you've spent with Joan, the things that you have learned from her and the memories that you have to keep close to your heart. While we are united in our sadness at her passing, we are also warmed and comforted by our memories. Time stands still for just a moment as we acknowledge that Joan has touched our lives and she has left an imprint in our hearts and in our minds. Her passing has left a sense of sadness among you all, but I hope it does give you some comfort knowing how much happiness you have each given her and how much she dearly loved you all. As some people journey through life, they leave footprints wherever they go. Footprints of kindness and love, of inspiration and happiness. Even though Joan has left, we can still look back and clearly see the footprints she has left behind. And we will remember that her life was one of value and purpose, and it was filled with a whole lot of love. one final short verse to share today are words I feel certain Joan would want you all to know. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when my life is done. Well, today has been a day to celebrate Joan's life and a day to share fond and loving memories. I'm sure this morning will be remembered for many reasons, but mainly I hope it will be remembered by you all as a very special day in which you were able to pay your last respects and say a fond farewell to a lady whom you were all privileged to have known. It's not what we write, it's not what we say, it's how we remember you in our own special way. Joan, we thank you for the memories and may you rest in eternal peace. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for put on.